Good morning, guys. I hope life is well. Sorry for the delay on that. Thanks for joining the SDLC Project Management webinar. We're recording the session and we'll submit a link to the recording over the next few days. Our next webinar is scheduled for October 7th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. This webinar is designed to teach you JIRA administration best practices. As you have questions, please be sure to provide them via questions utility on the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll queue them up and answer them towards the end of this session. On the webinar today from Principio Consulting, we have Amanda Babb. She is a Senior Solutions Architect, and she'll be presenting today's webinar. My name is Shane Cormier. I am Business Development Manager here for Principio Consulting, and I'll be serving as your moderator. We have been Atlassian Expert Partners for over 6 years now, and are one of 5 Platinum Expert Partners in the country. Over 99% of our projects are Atlassian related, and we have hundreds of clients across the US, ranging in size from 20-person companies all the way up to Fortune 20 enterprises spanning many different industries. We help our clients with process-centric technology solutions that facilitate traditional business process management, IT service management based on ITIL, software development lifecycles. In the SDLC space, we're helping clients transition from traditional waterfall to Agile. Whatever widgets you produce, we help improve the quality and throughput on the lowest cost. We actually support all of our clients in all facets of the Atlassian product suite and build methodologies and solutions across the entire product line. These will include solution architecting and implementations, licensing, upgrades and maintenance, solutions, managed services, hosting, add-on development, and training. Now I'd like to turn things over to Amanda. Take it away, Amanda.
Thank you, Shane. And again, thank you all for joining us today. Again, the fun part about working with technology is sometimes it doesn't like to work with you. But again, my name is Amanda Babb. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect here at Principio Consulting. I'm also a certified Scrum Master and Scaled Agile Frameworks for the Enterprise Program Consultant. So Agile is my life. We do a lot of Agile project management projects with our clients and just general project management projects today. So this is something that's really kind of my bread and butter, and I love talking about it both to our clients and to anybody pretty much who will listen. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to start off with SDLC project management, kind of talk about a brief history just so we can level set what we mean by that definition of project management in SDLC specifically. Then we'll talk about vision, roadmaps, and project diaries and how you can leverage Confluence to help you start putting all of that information together in order to kick off some sort of project or effort at your company or organization. Then we're going to talk about how to track your project or portfolio or program, whatever that is, with JIRA Agile, and JIRA Portfolio. Then we'll talk about some common pitfalls, some of the things that we've seen that folks have tried to implement and then eventually come back to us for advice or assistance in helping them sort of straighten their overall portfolio program and project management, help them straighten that out. And then last but not least, we're going to do some Q&A. So we'll have an opportunity for y'all to ask some questions and we'll answer those. Definitely use the questions menu over here in the GoToMeeting panel. Submit those. Shane will get those queued up and then we'll go through those. So the first piece we're going to talk about, like I said, is SDLC project management and sort of a brief history. So as I stated before, for as many times as we step on site with a client, we're asked about overall project management in JIRA, not just in the software space, but all types of project management. And I want you guys to keep in mind that SDLC project management is a bit of a misnomer. SDLC is really should be thought about as a phase of a software project, an overall phase of software project management, and should be approached as such. We'll talk about a little bit why that's important later on in the presentation. But again, let's start with a brief history. So in the beginning, we started off with waterfall. And what was great yesterday isn't necessarily as great as what we have today and isn't necessarily going to be as great of what we might have in the future, but we had to start somewhere. So as industry leaders started to figure out this software stuff and thought that technology is becoming more and more prevalent, they applied traditional project management from things like manufacturing, and construction industries to software development projects. And this is a great approach to working with older technology, right? Back in the day, in the beginning, software was rigid, it was ornery, it was hugely expensive to make changes midstream, and kind of just like building a house. Like once the roof is on, it's really hard to add a second story without significantly affecting the cost and timeline of a project. So as technology became more flexible, project management and life cycles and such needed to become more flexible as well. So we got smarter, right? We started to look at things like the cost of change curve and overall timelines. We started looking at things like feedback cycles. We started involving stakeholders and customers earlier. We started doing things like test-driven development. We started talking to one another. And if you've seen one of my webinars before, specifically the one on JIRA Portfolio, you've probably seen this graphic before. I just love this graphic because it essentially says that the shorter the feedback cycle, the lower the costs you'll have in any sort of project or software development piece moving forward. So then we got even smarter, right? We started doing this iterative approach type stuff, right? We started going into these agile frameworks where the entire time we're talking about requirements and feedback. The entire time we're doing small iterative chunks where we're going through and designing and implementing and verifying over and over and over and over and over and again. And so we got better at executing and delivering specifically what the stakeholders wanted. And while we got better at that, we kind of started to miss something. It's not just enough for us to do things like create epics and write stories and fix bugs in that SDLC chunk. We kind of missed out on the C-level reporting and the fact that PMOs wanted and needed to take another look at sort of the initiation and approval and closure of these items, right? So we got smarter. We got smarter still. We started to see it not only as just a standalone process of development, but that larger part of project management philosophy and change management strategies, right? While development was using that agile framework in order to iterate and iterate and iterate, and it was vital to the overall health of the organization to deliver value, it's again important to remember that that SDLC piece is part of a larger process. So when we're talking about project management and everything like that, right? Why is it important? What's in it for me, right? This is actually a thing from a company called Protiviti, and it was their 2015 priorities, IT priorities survey. And this was made up of 1,073 people between January and March of this year that were surveyed. And these people are CIOs, IT vice presidents, and IT directors. And while there's a lot of information on this infographic, and I very much encourage you to go find this, and we can probably embed a link to it in our thank you for attending today. Let's take a look at some of these things. So major disruptions, right? 60% of organizations are undergoing currently a major IT transformation, and 54% of those organizations expect those IT transformations to last another year or longer. So on a scale of 1 to 10, the level of disruption in an organization right now is at a 6.4. So it's well over that median of level of disruption. Like little disruption's okay, but basically all these folks are saying this is really big to the organization. Right? We're starting to look more at things like common goals across the organization. We're looking at how IT and developers and software organizations and things like that can come together with business to help meet the business objectives, right? So common goals are things like cost and simplification, or of course new functionality, right? So these things are coming together. What I really think is super important is on the right-hand corner over here is the practitioner skills of the trade. In 2015, on a scale of 1 to 10, these folks are saying that IT project management is really actually a 7 out of 10 in terms of something that they're looking for in skills. Program management is at 6.7, so it's also almost 7 out of 10 that they're rating these in terms of skills that they need their people to have. So super important that we really actually start thinking about how we're going to approach IT projects, software development projects, project management in general, right? So where do we start? Well, one of the things that we always encourage folks to do is, of course, use Confluence. Why is Confluence so awesome? So Confluence is, of course, an ideation engine and collaboration platform, right? This is where you should start, or right where the inception of things should be. Project proposals, that's where something is born, right? This is where someone comes up with the idea for what the next big thing is. And before teams engage in development, or before anybody puts even funding towards something, there should be a process. You should have some sort of process that a proposal goes through before it's given the green light. Or in this case, we see the green check mark. And project proposals can come from anywhere. They can come from the business, they can come from executives, they can come from customers, they can come from teams, they can come from product owners, they can come from wherever, right? So use Confluence in order to do things like setting up custom Confluence templates and blueprints. You can then embed things like JIRA macros to help folks start the ideas as needed to put things into the funnel, right? When we're thinking about this, these should be high level ideas, really high level ideas and initiatives that start as a draft and eventually go through some sort of collaborative process to decide whether or not this is something that we want to go for, right? So the vision of an effort is really actually built in Confluence before something ever even hits JIRA, right? The other thing is use the roadmap macro in Confluence. This allows folks to help rough schedule where items may fall in the overall timeline. The overall vision, a short-term roadmap maybe, initiatives, important markers, all of these items can be recorded and fleshed out in Confluence, again, before ever touching JIRA. They can also work together in the comments section of a particular page in order to say, this is something that's important, I need somebody to review this, hey, I've got some ideas, etc., right? That's what Confluence is designed to do. When you start getting a little bit further into your project, maintain your project diary, right? Create correct layouts, creative layouts. Also take a look at leveraging information from JIRA to pull into those things. You can use additional custom templates such as health reports, initiatives and epics and their respective statuses, historic and current states of items, and any additional PMO or program owner needs. So as we're putting those things together, right, we're starting to build our project diaries, right? And this can be before as well as during the execution of a project itself, right? So if you take a little bit of extra time to organize Confluence into effective page trees, it can make it very easy for folks to find and review information. Also to look at health reports or health statuses, right? Presenting to a C-level executive becomes very simple when you can find your parents and then the children of all of those major strategic themes or value streams that you're trying to go after with whatever this effort is that you're going through, right? The development teams can use that to then nest things like product requirements or retrospectives during their iterations or after their sprints, right? They can nestle those things in that tree so that if somebody wants to at any given time, they can see the high level overview of an effort all the way down to the nitty gritty, right? This is super important because then Confluence really truly becomes your single point of truth for all things product related. Vision, roadmap, overall project diaries really, really served well in Confluence. So the other thing that I'm asked all the time when I'm on site with a client, we're talking about software development, project management, or just project management in general, is the fact that they can't quite maybe figure out what's the best way to track what's going on at any given time. What's going on with a task over here? How are we tracking to progress? Are we on the correct baseline? Are we moving forward? Are we progressing the way that we need to? And is there a really easy way for me to see what's going on at any given time? So this is where I ask them the question of, really, what is the right level of detail, right? The hardest thing for a lot of our clients, and the hardest thing sometimes to discuss, is what information that you need to extract or track or allow JIRA to present for you. It's very easy to get super granular when creating JIRA projects to track things like portfolio and program information, right? So what's the right level of detail? And my advice is usually bring it up a level, right? Bring it up into something like an initiative or a theme in an issue type of some sort, right? Don't necessarily spin up a project for everything that accounting or HR may actually want as a project. Keep some of that level of detail at the issue type. Utilize things like linking and components. Make sure that you're putting everything together and you're actually creating those relationships within the issues themselves. So for example, here we have this initiative and we see all of the epics that are associated with it. And we even see some dependency linking, right? So here we've got this initiative and it has to be done after another initiative, right? So we're starting to see some of those dependencies and items. We see all the relationships from the epic level to that particular initiative, and we can very quickly and easily see on that given initiative what's the status, right? So if we're keeping our initiatives as larger projects or larger work efforts, then we can actually, at that level of granularity, very quickly and easily see what the overall status of an initiative is at any given time. Last but not least, leverage that epic issue type, right? Again, just at the initiative level where we can see dependencies and we can see links and we can see things over in Confluence, same thing for the epic. Make sure that you're using that and use the natural relationship that JIRA Agile brings into JIRA with the stories and epics relationship, that epic link. Use that, because if somebody wants to drill into a specific epic to see exactly what's going on, they can see that, right? So really focus on what is the right level of detail. If your level of detail is currently right now at the JIRA project level, take it up a notch, right? Get your initiative thinking along that project line, right? JIRA Agile is great because you can use it at every level. You can use it at the portfolio level to start tracking things such as your initiatives or your projects in quotation marks through the approval process, right? So for example, here we've got everything that's going through the funnel, there's a review piece, then it's going through analysis, and then it's go, no go, would go into the portfolio backlog to be weighted before eventually they get implemented. So use your Kanban boards in JIRA Agile at that portfolio level to help track those things. You can also use Kanban boards at the program level, right? So we're seeing not just the initiatives, but now we can also see the epics, right? So where are the epics? Are they in progress? Are folks actually working on them? Are we ready for them to be broken apart and estimated and worked on by our development teams, right? Again, keep it super high level and simplify when you're able to. And then, of course, JIRA Agile for the teams, best thing out there, right? They have the ability to write their stories, point their stories, create their sprints associated with the features. And then there's all of that robust reporting on the back end of JIRA Agile that allows you to look at cum flows and epic backlogs or epic burndowns, I should say, epic reports, overall sprint health. All of those wonderful things are on the back end of JIRA Agile, right? So use it at every level. Also, of course, we love JIRA Portfolio. Why? Because you can actually start pulling information from those boards and from JIRA itself to look at whether or not we're tracking to our overall value streams or strategic themes of the organization. Are we completing the amount of work that we expected in the amount of time based on dependencies, right? So we start seeing some Ganting as well as some progress reporting based off of when our release dates are and things like that. We can start looking at capacity. What's our overall team capacity? Do we have any bottlenecks, right? Do we have any free capacities between the teams? Can we shift some resources around in order to pull something over the finish line? Is every skill being utilized, or maybe no skills are being utilized? So with some setup pieces, now we can really look again at that portfolio level overall in the JIRA projects, etc. How are we maintaining our overall project health, right? So as I've talked about some of these things, again, there's always pitfalls that happen. As clients reached out to us and said, hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z, we start digging into it, and we end up finding there's a lot going on. So we help them through that, right? We help them streamline their processes. We help them go through and rearrange how JIRA and Confluence is working. And we set up proofs of concepts, and we give them sort of best practices in order to help with that. But my bit of advice today comes from about 4 common pitfalls that we see across all of our clients, whether they're software development or using JIRA and Confluence to help them with overall project management, right? More traditional project management type things. So the first thing is a coined phrase that we've called, where we call it snowflake syndrome. Everybody needs something unique and wonderful in JIRA, right? I need my own project for this, and I need to have my own different types of issues. I need my own issue types. I need my own workflows for my issue types. I need my own data models for my issue types. I need my own dashboard. I need my own dashboard for me. I need my own dashboard for this person. Then I need these kinds of things, and I want all of these. And so we end up with 67 projects and 204 custom workflows and 204 custom fields and 108 workflows to track 2,000 issues. It's kind of a lot, right? So simplify, take it up that level, right? As many times as folks say, I need this. This has to be like this for me. Really talk about the right level of granularity for them, right? Is to do, in progress, and done necessarily the best for all project management pieces? No, but maybe it's to do approved, in progress, and done. And that can apply across many different processes in the organization. So simplify when you're able, reserve the layer of granularity or the level of granularity for things that are truly unique, not necessarily working by exception. The other fun thing that I see a lot, and so do my colleagues and cohorts in crime, is the overuse or underuse of parent-child. So these are entity relationship diagrams that we've put together for folks as we're going through discovery pieces, right? So we have this top layer of parent issue types where they're really broad. It's like, we're doing this one big thing, but here are all the other things that we're doing down below it. And every single thing has to have its own workflow, and every single thing has to have its own data model, and everything has to be exactly the way that they need it to be in the child perspective in those subtasks, which may be necessary, but again, is that the right layer of granularity? Is it too much granularity? Because if you think about it, if you have to make a change to any of these things at some point in time, it's very heavy from an administrative perspective, from the JIRA administrator, as well as an overall governance of the applications, right? So you make a change to one tiny thing, and then you end up having to perpetuate that change through many, many JIRA projects or many different places, right? The other thing is, down below that, we see something where you don't have enough granularity, right? Everybody has to have sort of their own unique story up underneath an epic, right? With maybe a single subtask. Well, why does everybody have to have their own unique user story, right? Why can't we just have a single user story and allow that level of detail to sit in the subtasks, right? And manage that through workflow at the story level and the granularity down at the subtask level, right? So we've seen this before. Avoid overuse as well as underuse of that parent-child relationship. My favorite word, granularity, right? I've been saying that a lot through this common pitfalls discussion, but think about it this way. Your JIRA projects should be either at the product or value stream level. JIRA projects, and it's kind of a horrible word because we say project management and then we say JIRA project and we think the two equate. They don't necessarily equate, okay? Projects in JIRA should equal higher level things. The life cycle of a product or a value stream is extremely long. Think about this from an Atlassian perspective. In their JIRA project, for JIRA, JRA dash whatever your issue key is, that has been the single JIRA project that they've used for the JIRA product since the beginning. Okay, JIRA projects don't go away after 6 months or a year because whatever's it was trying to accomplish was executed, right? They stay there for as long as you're maintaining that particular product. Last but not least, my favorite thing, reporting without action. So reporting is good, but reporting without taking definitive action is really a waste of everyone's time, right? I tell folks all the time, and so do our colleagues, I can pull anything that you want out of JIRA with an add-on or even sometimes out of the box, right? But what are you going to do with the data? So we see things like, what's the overall project health? How have we done on Tuesdays for the past quarter? I want to trend a pie chart of the things I want to pivot the things so I can see what the things are thinking. I want to taste purple. I've been asked for all of these things at any given time, right? But the biggest question is, if we're pulling all of this data and we're looking at this data and we're slicing this data and we're trending this data, what are people doing about it? Right? What are the actions that are coming from this? What are the changes that we're going to make? If my project status is poor or my overall health status of a particular effort is poor, what are the actions that we're taking in order to get it back to a green? Or what are we doing to basically say this is the time that we're ready to abandon something, right? So when folks are asking for data, I always ask, what are you going to do with it? Why do you want to see it? Who's going to act on it? Is this just an overall view? Do we need to do this on, does the data need to trend, right? Like, why are we doing this? Because again, data is data. Reporting without action is basically just presenting something. So, little overview of what we've covered today. We talked about sort of the brief history of project management and SDLC project management in general, where it came from. We've talked about using Confluence for your vision, your roadmap, your project diaries, and organizing those kinds of things in Confluence itself. We've talked about how to do some program portfolio and team tracking with JIRA, JIRA Agile, as well as JIRA Portfolio. And then last but not least, I went through and did some common pitfalls using the Atlassian toolset, some of the things that we've seen our clients do that we've tried to get them to change and ultimately have changed and been successful. So with all of that being said, we wanted to leave lots of time for questions. So Shane, did we have any questions throughout the course of this webinar today?
You actually did. Thanks, Amanda. I would like to start off with one of the people asked, what does purple actually taste like? So if you can answer that, I'd like to know.
Well, I will tell you, it's kind of grapey, as you would expect. Yeah, so it's kind of grapey. Not quite as grapey as wine, but definitely grapey.
Perfect. That's exactly what I thought. Thanks. All right. So jumping back to the Atlassian questions, we did actually have several. The first one is does the Confluence roadmap macro use JIRA data?
Currently, it does not, right? Really what it's intended to be is sort of to just give folks a way to look at, to start moving things around, to get the ideas flowing, right? Confluence being a great ideation engine and collaboration platform, you could basically put those bars in as ideas and then start fleshing out some of the lightweight business case, etc. What is really cool about it is, like, as you add those bars in the different swim lanes, is that you can immediately link it to a page that currently exists. So you could actually click on the bar and get to a Confluence page for that particular level of effort. So again, that's intended not to necessarily be progress tracking, but to kind of give you a rough start of where we think we need to put things in order to effectively manage our vision over a short and long period of time.
Perfect, thank you. We actually had a clarification question. They wanted to know, I didn't understand if you use one project per product or one per initiative. Could you repeat that, please?
Absolutely. So JIRA projects really should be, like I said, in the common pitfalls section, really should be at that product level or value stream level, because sometimes people don't make products, they just deliver value. An initiative would be an issue type within a JIRA project, right? Or it could be housed in its own JIRA project, right? So really think about JIRA projects as long-lived. It's like that Atlassian example that I gave you. Their JIRA project for developing against JIRA has been there since the beginning of Atlassian. And so it's the same product that they're supporting over that period of time. That is where you would create a JIRA project and then manage your initiatives, or what you may consider more of a traditional style of project management, projects in quotation marks, as an issue type in the overall JIRA project. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's project, really awful terminology, and I spend so much time level setting that language with clients. So thank you for asking for the clarification. I'm more than happy to provide that. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So we had one other question asking, they wanted to see if we can get a copy of the webinar slides. I can actually address that. We actually do not provide the webinar slides, but we will produce the recording of the webinar probably by Monday. If you check our website, it'll be at percipioconsulting.com and the /webinars. So you'll go there and you should have all the historical webinars we've had in the past and then the most recent one there. So thank you for that question. The next question I have for you, Amanda, is if you have one JIRA project per product, how do you handle product lines?
Right. So again, that's talking about overall granularity. So if you have a product line, you can do things like leveraging project categories. So for example, one of our clients, they have a series of JIRA projects that aren't just around product development. They're also around things like ITSM, IT service management, change management, etc. So essentially what they've done is they've taken all of their product projects and wrapped a project category around them so that they can then leverage that to start slicing and dicing reporting, and creating additional filters when they can pull that information into like portfolio or even into those Kanban boards at the portfolio and program level. So yeah, definitely use your project categories to help get at that slightly higher level.
Perfect. Next one is, what if I want a report that isn't available in JIRA?
So there's lots of different ways to handle reporting from JIRA itself. There are a bunch of different reporting add-ons that are out there. Data Plan is one of them. EasyBI is another one. So you can add those things in to your JIRA instance if you're just basically saying, I want to pull this out, crunch it, and do whatever I'd like to with it. There's an out-of-the-box function of being able to export a large data set into Excel, and then you could go and do your overall reporting in something like Excel. There are of course some caveats to all of those things, like what's the best way to do it, etc. The biggest thing that I tell folks on a regular basis about reporting is, again, reporting without action is just data for data's sake, right? So what are you doing with the information? Why do you need that report? What exactly is that value going to give you if you have to spend time exporting it or building the template in JIRA or building the query? The other thing I tell folks is that JIRA is a data in, data out program or application. There we go. That was the right word. So if you don't have the data in there in the first place, you're not going to be able to get the data out. So we spend a lot of time talking about how do the data models within the issue types themselves match up to metrics and things that you're going to want to pull out later on. So there's lots of different options, but like I said, the most common thing that I've seen is that if the company or the client isn't comfortable with a particular add-on, they will just export a big data set to Excel and then run it through some sort of spreadsheet type analysis thing.
Thank you very much. Good stuff there. Next question is, what is meant by lightweight business case, and how extensive does the ROI analysis need to be?
Okay, so there's a concept in scaled agile frameworks for the enterprise where as you're going through the vetting at the portfolio epic level, JIRA Portfolio calls that the initiative, where you go through and you basically create a very simple lightweight business case. What it is basically just kind of the inception of the idea. You put in a couple of quick things about it. I would say that from an ROI perspective, if you're spending more than half a day putting together a lightweight business case, you're spending too much time because you're starting to think too deeply. It's really basically just to get something moving from a funnel perspective. Like all of the ideas come into that analysis phase before you actually decide to start to decide to pull the trigger on something. Also, because it is a template and it's in Confluence, it's a living document, right? So your first lightweight business case that you create can be very simple, and you can say ROI, I don't know what our return on investment is, or we might not even have one, right? So you don't necessarily have to require that information, but it is a way for folks to start thinking about what they're going to need to affect that change for that new product or for that new value stream or whatever that is, right? That new thing that they're trying to create. I hope that answered that question.
Sounds good to me. All right, let's see. Next question is, where would you start if you wanted to move your team to a simpler agile model?
Ooh, great question. So the first thing that I would do is actually kind of take a step back and get my folks into some sort of agile training. There's a lot of different training classes out there for teams, for product owners, for scrum masters, etc. If you are feeling like you want to run scrum. If training is just absolutely out of the question, whether it's for budget or time reasons or anything like that, start with a Kanban board in JIRA Agile, because that's really meant to be that pull methodology where you have this backlog of items, and as things are getting worked, they're moving through the workflow, being pulled through the workflow. Then that's a really easy way for folks to be like, oh, here's all the work. Let me grab the work. Let me do the work. Let me complete the work. And then eventually we can release the work. So I would say, if you can, best case scenario, absolutely get your folks into some sort of agile training. If you can't, then start with the Kanban boards, right? And simplify. If you have a 47-step workflow, start with to do in progress and done.
A lot of steps. 47 is quite a few.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff, though. Mm-hmm. Next question. Is there an issue with having too many dashboards?
There's not necessarily an issue with too many dashboards, but it's kind of the same line of why do you need 47 dashboards, right? Or why do you need as many dashboards as you have? I understand that individual folks may want to work from a dashboard as opposed to just a query or a filter, or even maybe they want to work from an agile board. It's just, again, what layer, why are you presenting the data on the dashboard? And if a modification needs to be made to a dashboard, why not just change one as opposed to creating a whole new one, right? Because these are living, breathing applications. So as you progress, as your organization progresses, then so should your dashboards, etc. The one thing that I want to make sure that folks are aware of is that an executive dashboard should have the right level of information for an executive, but do you necessarily need all those same gadgets and all those same pieces of information on, say, a team dashboard? And the answer may be no, right? So you would have those two separate dashboards, but would you have a dashboard for each team? Maybe not. Do you want to encourage folks to always go look at the executive dashboard? Maybe. It comes down to what's the right level of reporting and how do folks prefer to work. There's lots of different ways that folks can prefer to work. So
Good stuff. Let's see, we have a couple more questions here. If I lose the granularity, how would I know what my people are doing?
good question. So there's a lot of concepts within, or the big concept. Let me try to start the sentence over again. There's the concept in Agile frameworks of trust, right? So again, my question when folks are like, how do I know what so and so is working on this week? Well, they have issues that are assigned to them. They're working on things. There's got to be that level of trust. You've employed these people for a reason. You've brought them into your organization as contributors to the greater good of the organization, right? Also, there's lots of different ways that can happen. I mean, you can break down out to the stories down to the subtask level and say, okay, this person's working on this subtask, this person's working on this subtask, this person's working on this subtask. But why do we need to know that? In the grand scheme of things, is the story getting worked on? Was it committed to? Was it going to be done at the end of the iteration? Yes, because it was committed to, right? So in the beginning, yeah, maybe you want to go down to that level of granularity by individual, but like I said, it's an organizational trust thing. You've hired these people for a reason. They're there to do their job. They're there to provide value. Give them a little bit of leash.
I like that last part. It's good stuff. Last question that we have here. How would my team go about getting assistance with fine-tuning our JIRA workflows?
Well, there are lots of different ways that you can do that. Like you could reach out to an Atlassian expert. We happen to know one. It's called Principio Consulting, and we're more than happy to go through. We can do discoveries, we can do assessments, we can actually work with you to streamline those processes and then put those items into place for you at any given time. So that's why there is the expert network for Atlassian, and of course, Principio Consulting is one of those members that's more than happy to help you out with whatever you need from an Atlassian toolset perspective.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Looks like that's all the questions for now. All right, guys. So as a reminder, our next webinar is scheduled for October 7th at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time and will be hosted by our own Thomas Knight. This webinar is designed to teach you JIRA administration best practices. So please register and get your questions ready. Outside of that, guys, thank you so much for attending our webinar today. Hope you have a wonderful day.